The rejection wound burned like silver against Ilara's throat as she collapsed into the snow. 3 days since Marcus had stood before the entire Harvest Moon gathering and chosen Helena, the Alpha's perfect daughter with her perfect bloodline, over their fated bond. 3 days since Ilara's wolf had shattered inside her chest like dropped glass. She pressed her palm against the mark, feeling the torn bond pulse with each heartbeat. The blizzard howled around her, driving needles of ice through her thin coat. She should shift, let her wolf carry her deeper into the forbidden woods where no one would follow. But her wolf was broken too, whimpering in the back of her mind, unable to do more than stumble forward on 2 legs. At least the cold would be quick. At least it would stop hurting. Then she heard it, a sound that made her freeze mid-step, a child crying. Ilara lifted her head, snow clinging to her lashes. No, impossible. No one came into these woods. The Forbidden Woods had earned their name through decades of disappearances, of wolves who entered and never returned. Even her desperate flight from her pack hadn't been enough to drive others after her here. The cry came again, thin and weak against the storm. Her legs moved before her mind caught up, following the sound through the darkness. Her Omega instincts surged, sudden and fierce, cutting through the fog of rejection and pain. Something needed her, something small and helpless and dying. She found him in a hollow between 2 massive pines, a tiny bundle wrapped in fabric so red it looked like spilled blood against the snow. No, no, no. Ilara dropped to her knees, her frozen fingers fumbling with the cloth. A child, no more than 4 years old, his lips blue and his small body shaking with cold. The fabric fell away and her breath caught. Royal crimson. The colour of the Shadow Crown pack. She knew that mark. Everyone in the Northern Territories knew it. The most powerful pack, ruled by an alpha so ruthless that other packs whispered his name like a curse. What was one of their children doing here, abandoned in the snow to die? The boy's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy. He tried to cry again, but managed only a weak whimper. "I've got you." Ilara pulled him against her chest, tucking him inside her coat against her skin. He was so cold, like holding a block of ice. "Stay with me, little one. Stay with me." She forced herself to stand. The boy clutched tight against her. Her wolf stirred, pushing strength into her trembling legs. The rejection wound still throbbed, but something older and deeper had woken up. The primal Omega need to protect, to nurture, to save. Ilara turned in a slow circle, searching through the storm. There, a dark shape through the trees. She stumbled toward it, each step an act of will, until the shape resolved into a small hunter's cabin, its door hanging loose on rusted hinges. The inside was barely better than outside, but it had walls and a fireplace. Ilara kicked the door shut behind them and collapsed beside the cold hearth. Her hands shook so badly she could barely strike the flint, but finally, blessedly, a spark caught. The kindling ignited. She stripped off her wet coat and wrapped the boy in it, then pulled him back against her, curling her body around his, skin to skin, sharing her heat. His small fingers clutched at her shirt. "That's it," she whispered, rocking him slowly. "I'm here. You're safe now." The fire grew, spreading warmth through the cabin. Gradually, colour returned to the boy's face. His shivering eased. He pressed his face against her shoulder and went still, not the stillness of death, but of exhausted sleep. Ilara let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Her eyes burned, but no tears came. She'd cried herself dry over Marcus, over the life she'd lost. She had nothing left for herself, but she had enough for this child. 3 days passed in a strange, quiet rhythm. The blizzard raged outside, sealing them into the cabin, but Ilara didn't mind. She found supplies in the cabin, old but still good, left by a hunter who would never return. She melted snow for water, rationed the dried meat and preserved vegetables, kept the fire burning. The boy, Kieran, she'd learned, one of the few words he'd whispered before falling silent again, slowly came back to life. His colour improved, his breathing deepened, but he wouldn't speak, and he never left her side, following her around the small cabin like a shadow. On the third morning, as she helped him wash, she saw them. Silver scars crisscrossing his small forearms, perfectly symmetrical, deliberate. Her stomach turned. "Who did this to you?" She touched one gently. "Kieran, who hurt you?" He pulled away, wrapping his arms around himself. His eyes, strange eyes, she realized now, one amber and one pale grey, fixed on her face with an intensity that seemed too old for his years. Dark magic. The thought came unbidden, but certain. These were ritual scars, the kind made by someone who knew exactly what they were doing, someone powerful. Ilara sat back on her heels, a child from the Shadow Crown pack, marked with dark magic, abandoned to die in the Forbidden Woods. Someone hadn't just wanted Kieran dead. They'd wanted him erased, as far from civilization as possible. The question was why, and the answer to that question would determine whether staying hidden in this cabin was the smartest choice or the most dangerous one. "Kieran." She kept her voice soft, non-threatening. "Do you know why you were in the woods?" He stared at her for a long moment, then slowly shook his head. "Do you remember who brought you here?" Another headshake, but this time his eyes filled with tears. He launched himself at her, small arms wrapping around her neck. Face buried against her shoulder, Ilara held him, her heart aching in a way that had nothing to do with rejection wounds. This child had been thrown away, left to die alone in the cold. Whatever had happened to him, whoever had hurt him, they'd tried to make sure no one would ever find him. But she had found him. Her wolf stirred, stronger than it had been since Marcus's rejection. The bond with her former mate still ached, a phantom pain that might never fully heal. But something new was growing in its place, fierce and protective and wholly directed at the small boy in her arms. She had a choice to make. She could stay here, hidden and safe, raising Kieran as her own in this forgotten corner of the world. No one from her old pack would follow her into the Forbidden Woods. No one from the Shadow Crown pack would expect to find their lost child here. Or she could seek help, find someone who could explain the scars, who could tell her what kind of magic had been worked on a 4-year-old child, someone who might help her protect him from whoever had tried to kill him. But seeking help meant exposure. It meant risking her life, and possibly Kieran's. Ilara looked down at the boy, at his small hands clutching her shirt, at the silver scars on his arms, at the mark of the Shadow Crown pack still visible on the crimson fabric she'd carefully washed and folded. Someone powerful had wanted this child dead, which meant someone powerful might come looking to finish the job. She couldn't do this alone. As much as her wounded heart wanted to hide away from the world, to curl around this child and protect him from everything, she knew the truth. She wasn't strong enough. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Kieran needed more than a broken Omega could give him. He needed answers. He needed protection. He needed someone who understood the dark magic that had been carved into his skin. "We're going to leave soon," Ilara whispered into his hair. "We're going to find help. I promise I'll keep you safe." Kieran didn't respond, but his grip on her tightened. Outside, the blizzard finally began to ease. Through the cabin's small window, Ilara could see the first hints of clear sky. The storm was ending. Their isolation was ending. Soon, they would have to face whatever waited for them beyond these walls. Chapter 2. The rogues came to the cabin on the 4th day, drawn by the smoke from Ilara's fire. She heard them before she saw them. 3 wolves moving through the forest with the peculiar carelessness of those who had nothing left to lose. Ilara pulled Kieran behind her, positioning herself between the boy and the door, her heart hammering against her ribs. When they shifted and approached in human form, hands raised in peace, she didn't relax. Rogues were unpredictable, desperate. She'd seen what desperation could do. Easy, Omega. The female leading them was older, her face weathered by years of hard living. "We're not here for trouble, just saw your smoke and thought we'd warn you." "Warn me about what?" Ilara kept her voice steady, even as Kieran's small hand fisted in the back of her shirt. "You haven't heard?" The woman's eyebrows rose. "The whole north is in chaos. Alpha King Damon Silvercrest's heir has been missing for a week. He's offering enough gold to buy a small pack, and he's threatening war on anyone who might be hiding information." Ilara's blood went cold. A week. Kieran had been in these woods for a week before she found him. "The Shadow Crown Pack," she said carefully. "Their Alpha is looking for his son." "Looking?" One of the male rogues barked a laugh. "He's tearing the territories apart. His warriors are everywhere, searching every den, every safe house. Word is, he's gone half mad with it." He paused, his eyes shrewd. "You wouldn't happen to know anything about a missing royal pup, would you?" "No." The lie came easily, but her hand tightened on Kieran's shoulder. "I've been here alone, recovering from a rejection." "I don't know anything about any missing child." The female rogue studied her for a long moment, then shrugged. "Fair enough. Just thought you should know. The Forbidden Woods won't stay empty much longer. The king's warriors are desperate enough to search even here." She turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. The Queen died 6 months back. Mysterious circumstances. Since then, the king's been unhinged with grief. Some say he loved her beyond reason. Others say guilt's eating him alive." "Guilt for what?" The woman's smile was grim. "Palace rumours claim the boy wasn't actually the king's son. That Queen Vivienne had an affair? Word is that's why the child disappeared. Some members of the royal court decided to handle the problem themselves." Ilara's stomach churned. She waited until the rogues disappeared into the forest before she allowed herself to move, pulling Kieran around to face her. "Is it true?" she asked softly. "Is your father the Alpha King?" Kieran stared at her with those mismatched eyes, one amber, one grey, and said nothing. They left the cabin at dawn, travelling south and east toward Shadow Crown territory. Ilara told herself she was doing the right thing. A child deserved to know his parent, deserved to grow up in a palace instead of hiding in the woods with a broken Omega. If the king truly was searching desperately for his son, then perhaps the rumours were wrong. Perhaps Damon Silvercrest hadn't wanted his child dead at all. Perhaps returning Kieran would save his life instead of ending it. She kept to the dense forest, avoiding roads and packed territories, travelling only during daylight when Kieran could see where they were going. He walked beside her without complaint, his small hand tucked in hers, his silence a constant weight against her heart. At night, she held him while he slept and tried not to think about what would happen when she gave him up. Her Omega instincts screamed against it, insisted that he was hers to protect, but she forced them down. She'd found him by accident. He had a father, a kingdom, a life that didn't include her. Her wolf disagreed. For the first time since Marcus's rejection, she could feel her wolf clearly, no longer fractured and whimpering, but present, aware, growing stronger with each passing day. It was Kieran, she realised. Something about the boy was healing what Marcus had broken. She didn't understand it, but she was grateful. On the third day of travel, she caught the scent. Ilara froze, her hand tightening on Kieran's. The wind had shifted, carrying with it a smell she knew too well. Her old pack, and they were close. "Run," she whispered, scooping Kieran into her arms. "We have to run." She made it perhaps 100 yards before they appeared, cutting off her path. 5 of them, led by Marcus himself, his new mate Helena at his side. "Ilara." Marcus's voice was cold, nothing like the warmth she remembered from before. "We've been looking for you." She set Kieran down, but kept him behind her, her body a shield. "Let me pass, Marcus. I'm not part of your pack anymore. You have no claim on me." "That's where you're wrong." Helena stepped forward, her perfect face twisted with contempt. "You know too much about our family's business. About the deals my father made with the rogue clans, about the territory disputes we settled with silver and steel instead of challenges." She smiled, and it was a terrible thing. "You're a loose end, Omega, and we don't leave loose ends." Ilara's heart pounded. She'd known about the illegal dealings, had kept her mouth shut because she'd loved Marcus, because she'd believed pack loyalty was sacred. But Helena was right. A rejected Omega with dangerous knowledge was too great a risk. "I never told anyone," she said, "and I never will. Just let us go." "Us?" Marcus's eyes dropped to Kieran for the first time, and something calculating moved across his face. "Who's the pup?" "No one. A stray I found in the woods." "Liar." Helena's nostrils flared. "That's royal fabric. That's—" Her eyes widened. "That's the Shadow Crown mark. You found the missing prince." The world seemed to slow down. Ilara saw Marcus's expression shift from confusion to understanding to greed. Saw Helena smile like a wolf who'd just cornered a rabbit. Saw the other 3 pack members spread out, blocking any escape route. "The king's offering a fortune for his return," Helena breathed. "Enough to buy our pack out of debt, enough to make us powerful." "You can't have him," Ilara snarled, and for the first time in days, she felt her wolf surge to the surface, strong and furious and ready to fight. "Stand aside, Omega." Marcus's command rolled over her, backed by his beta authority. "The child belongs to the Shadow Crown. We're doing the right thing, returning him to his father." "After you kill me to keep me quiet?" Ilara shook her head. "I don't think so." Helena moved first, shifting mid-leap, her wolf form beautiful and deadly. Ilara barely had time to shift in response, her bones cracking and reforming, her consciousness merging with her wolf's. She was stronger than she'd been, faster. The fractured bond wasn't screaming anymore, it was singing, filled with a fierce protective rage that had nothing to do with Marcus and everything to do with the child trembling behind her. She met Helena's attack head-on. Teeth finding fur and flesh, they tumbled through the underbrush, snarling and snapping. Somewhere nearby, she heard Marcus shift, heard the others following suit, 5 against 1. She couldn't win, but she could give Kieran time to run. Ilara threw back her head and howled, a desperate sound that she prayed would reach someone, anyone, who might help. Then she launched herself at Marcus, using every ounce of her newfound strength. He was bigger, stronger, his beta blood giving him advantages she couldn't match. But she was fighting for something more important than herself. She was fighting for a child who'd already been abandoned once, who'd been marked with dark magic and left to die. She wouldn't let them take him. Blood filled her mouth, hers or Marcus's, she couldn't tell. Claws raked across her shoulder, teeth found her leg. She was losing, being driven back, being torn apart. But she was still standing. Then Helena hit her from behind, jaws closing around her throat, and Ilara knew it was over. A roar split the air, not a wolf's howl, but something deeper, more primal, filled with rage and power that made every wolf in the clearing freeze. Through the trees came warriors in black armor, a dozen at least, moving with the coordinated precision of trained soldiers. At their head was a wolf, larger than any Ilara had ever seen, his coat silver black, his eyes blazing gold. He shifted as he ran, becoming a man who looked like violence incarnate, tall and broad-shouldered, his face carved from stone, a silver crown marking his brow even in human form. Power rolled off him in waves that made Ilara's wolf want to bare her throat in submission. Alpha King Daemon Silvercrest. Helena released Ilara's throat and backed away, her wolf form trembling. Marcus and the others scattered, disappearing into the forest like smoke. Ilara shifted back to human form, her hand pressed against her bleeding throat, her eyes on the king. He wasn't looking at her. His gaze was fixed on something behind her, his entire body rigid with an emotion she couldn't name. She turned and saw Kieran, still in human form, staring at his father with wide, terrified eyes. "Kieran." Damon's voice cracked on the name. "Kieran, you're alive." He took a step forward. Kieran took a step back, pressing against Ilara's legs. Something in the king's face shattered. "Son, please. I've been searching for you. I thought—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "I thought you were dead." "Your Majesty." Ilara found her voice, rough and painful from her injuries. "I found him in the Forbidden Woods. I was bringing him back to you." Damon's eyes finally focused on her, and she saw the madness the rogues had mentioned. The grief and rage and desperate hope churning just beneath the surface. "You saved him." "Yes. Where are you hurt?" He moved toward her, his hands already reaching for her injuries, and she flinched back instinctively. He froze. "I'm not going to hurt you. Let me see." She let him examine her throat, feeling the warmth of his healing power flow through the wounds, closing the worst of them. His touch was gentle, professional, nothing like the violence she'd just witnessed. When he was done, he stepped back and looked at Kieran again. The boy had wrapped both arms around Ilara's leg, his face hidden against her thigh. "Kieran." Damon's voice was infinitely careful. "Will you come to me?" Kieran's grip tightened. "Your Majesty." Ilara laid a hand on Kieran's head, feeling his small body trembling. "He hasn't spoken since I found him. The rogues told me about your mate's death. I'm sorry." Pain flashed across Damon's face. "Vivian." "Yes." He seemed to struggle with something, then continued. "Did you see the marks on his arms? The silver scars?" "Yes." "Dark magic." His voice turned hard, dangerous. "Someone in my court betrayed me. Took my son while I was lost in grief. Performed a blood ritual on him, then left him in the woods to die." His hands clenched into fists. "I've been hunting them, but they're well hidden, protected." "The rogue said there were rumors," Ilara said carefully, "about Kieran's parentage." Damon's eyes blazed. "Lies, every word of it. Kieran is my son, my heir, my blood. The rumors were started by those who wanted him gone, who wanted to weaken my claim to the throne." He looked at his son with such raw longing that Ilara's heart ached. "I would burn the world to ash for him." Kieran made a small sound against her leg. "He's afraid of you," Ilara said softly. "I know." The king's voice broke. "I know, and I don't understand why. Before Vivian died, before all of this, he loved me. We were inseparable. And then—" He stopped, his jaw working. "And then everything fell apart." One of the warriors approached, kneeling. "Your Majesty, we should return to the palace. The boy needs proper care, and this Omega requires healing." "No." Kieran's voice was so quiet, Ilara almost missed it. "No palace." Everyone froze. Damon dropped to his knees in the dirt, making himself small, non-threatening. "Kieran, son, please talk to me." Kieran lifted his face from Ilara's leg, and she felt her heart break at the tears streaming down his cheeks. His mismatched eyes, amber and grey, so like his father's gold, fixed on the king. "Mother hurt me," he whispered. "Father doesn't want me." The words fell like stones into still water, creating ripples that spread outward through the clearing. Damon went white, his body swaying as if struck. "What?" The single word was barely audible. "Mother hurt me," Kieran repeated, his voice stronger now, years of pain pouring out. "She said I was bad, that I was wrong. She brought the man with the knife, and he made the marks, and it hurt so much, and I cried for Father, but Father never came." His small hands clutched at Ilara's leg. "And then Father said he didn't want me anymore, said I should go away forever." "No." Damon's voice was ragged. "No, Kieran, I never—" "You did!" Kieran's shout echoed through the forest. "You told Mother you didn't want me. I heard you. And then she took me to the woods and left me, and it was cold and dark, and I thought I was going to die, but then—" He looked up at Ilara, his expression softening. "Then she found me. She saved me. She wants me." Ilara couldn't breathe. She looked at Damon and saw devastation written across his features, saw him piecing together what had happened, understanding dawning like a terrible sunrise. "Vivian," he breathed, "she told you I didn't want you. She performed the ritual herself, or had it done. She tried to kill you and make it look like—" He stopped, his hand shaking. "I never said those things, Kieran. I never wanted you gone. I loved you. I love you still." Liar. But Kieran's voice wavered, uncertain now. Damon looked at Ilara, and in his eyes she saw a plea that transcended rank and power. "How do I prove it to him? How do I make him understand?" Ilara knelt down, bringing herself level with Kieran. "Do you remember your father at all? Before your mother hurt you?" Kieran bit his lip, then nodded slowly. "He taught me to shift. He let me sleep in his bed when I had nightmares. He called me his little wolf." "And does that sound like someone who doesn't want you?" "But Mother said—" "Your mother lied." Ilara kept her voice gentle but firm. "I don't know why. Maybe she was sick in her mind. Maybe someone was controlling her. But she lied, Kieran. Your father has been searching for you. He's offering everything he has to get you back." Kieran looked at his father, really looked at him, and Ilara saw the war playing out across his small face, hope and fear and desperate longing all tangled together. "I'm scared," he whispered. "I know," Damon said. "I'm scared too. Scared I've lost you forever. Scared I can't fix this. Scared—" His voice broke. "Scared that you'll never forgive me for not protecting you from her?" "It wasn't your fault," Kieran said, so quietly, Ilara almost missed it. "It was. I was so lost in my grief when Vivian started to change. I didn't see what was happening. I didn't protect you." Damon's hands were still shaking. "But I swear to you, on my crown and my life and everything I hold sacred, I will never let anyone hurt you again. If you'll come home with me." Kieran's grip on Ilara loosened slightly. "Can she come too?" Everyone looked at Ilara. She felt the weight of their gazes, felt the impossibility of the situation settling over her like a net. She was no one. A rejected Omega from a minor pack. A fugitive with dangerous knowledge that her former pack wanted buried. She had no place in a royal palace. But when she looked at Kieran's pleading eyes, at the fragile hope blooming on his face, she couldn't say no. "I'll come," she heard herself say, "if your father agrees." Damon's expression was unreadable. "You saved my son's life. You brought him back to me when you could have demanded the ransom, could have used him as leverage for your own gain. Whatever you want, whatever you need, it's yours." "I don't want anything." Ilara met his eyes. "I just want to make sure he's safe." Something flickered in Damon's gaze. Respect, perhaps, or understanding. "Then you'll come to the palace as his guardian, as family." Kieran finally released Ilara's leg and took a tentative step toward his father. Then another. Then he was running, small legs carrying him across the clearing, and Damon caught him and pulled him close, his face buried in his son's hair, his body shaking with silent sobs. Ilara turned away to give them privacy, but one of the warriors caught her arm. "The king will want to repay you properly," the woman said, "and you'll need protection. Your former pack knows you have the prince." Ilara's stomach dropped. She'd forgotten about Marcus and Helena in the chaos. They'd seen Kieran. They knew. And now they knew the king would reward whoever brought his son home. "They'll come after him again," she said. "Let them try." The warrior's smile was sharp. "They'll find Shadow Crown hospitality very different from what they expect." As if summoned by her thoughts, a howl rose from the forest, Marcus's voice filled with rage and frustration. answered by others. Helena, the pack members who'd fled. They were regrouping, planning. Damon lifted his head, his eyes blazing gold. "Take Kieran to the horses," he ordered. "And the Omega. Get them to safety." "Your Majesty, now." The command was absolute, undeniable. The warriors moved immediately, forming a protective circle around Ilara and Kieran. Damon stood, setting his son down gently, his hand lingering on the boy's head. "I'll be right behind you," he promised. "I just need to have a conversation with these wolves who thought they could take what's mine." The last thing Ilara saw before they disappeared into the trees was Damon shifting, his silver-black wolf turning to face the forest where Marcus's pack was gathering. The Alpha King's roar shook the earth, and in it she heard a promise of violence that made her blood run cold. They were safe now, under the protection of the most powerful Alpha in the north. But as Kieran slipped his hand into hers, and they ran through the forest toward waiting horses and the palace beyond, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that they were running towards something far more dangerous than what they'd left behind. Chapter 3. The palace rose from the mountain like a crown of stone and starlight, its towers piercing the twilight sky. Ilara had seen it from a distance once, years ago, when her pack had travelled for the northern summit. Up close, it was overwhelming, ancient and beautiful and terrifying all at once. The warriors escorted them through gates guarded by wolves in human form, their eyes tracking every movement. Servants scattered as they passed, whispering behind their hands. Ilara kept Kieran close, her arm around his shoulders, hyper-aware of every stare, every murmur. They were taken to a suite of rooms in the east wing, spacious chambers with windows overlooking the forest, furnished with more luxury than Ilara had seen in her entire life. A fire crackled in the hearth. Fresh clothes had been laid out on the bed. "The king will send for you shortly," the female warrior who'd spoken to her earlier said. Her name was Commander Lyris, and she had the look of someone who'd earned her position through blood and steel. "In the meantime, the boy should eat. So should you." "Thank you." Ilara's throat was still sore from Helena's attack, despite the king's healing. "Commander, what will happen now?" Lyris's expression was carefully neutral. "That's for His Majesty to decide, but you should know. You saved the heir. The king doesn't forget debts like that." She paused at the door. "He also doesn't trust easily. Not anymore." Then she was gone, leaving Ilara alone with Kieran in rooms that felt more like a gilded cage than sanctuary. Kieran pulled away from her, exploring the space with wide eyes. He touched the silk curtains, the carved furniture, the toys that had been placed in the corner. Waiting, Ilara realized with a pang, for a child who'd been missing for over a week. "This was my room," Kieran said softly. Before your mother..." Ilara stopped, uncertain how to finish that sentence. "Before she got sick." Kieran picked up a wooden wolf, turning it over in his small hands. "She wasn't always bad. She used to read me stories. But then she started saying strange things, looking at me like she didn't know who I was." His mismatched eyes found Ilara's. "Do you think she's in the sky now? With the moon goddess?" Ilara's heart clenched. She knelt beside him, taking his hands. "I think your mother was sick in a way that made her do terrible things. But I also think she loved you once, and maybe that part of her, the good part, is at peace now." It was a lie, or at least a kind version of a truth she didn't fully understand. But Kieran needed it, and she would give him whatever comfort she could. A knock at the door made them both jump. A servant entered, bowing low. "The king requests your presence in the throne room, both of you, immediately." Ilara's stomach twisted. "Can I change first?" The servant's eyes flicked to her travel-stained clothes, the dried blood on her shirt. His Majesty was insistent. "Now, if you please." There was no refusing. Ilara took Kieran's hand and followed the servant through a maze of corridors, each more opulent than the last. Courtiers watched them pass with expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. She heard the whispers trailing behind them like smoke. The Omega, who found him? Nobody, from some minor pack. How do we know she didn't take him in the first place? Ilara lifted her chin and ignored them all. She'd faced worse than gossip. She'd survived this too. The throne room was massive, its ceiling lost in shadow, its walls lined with the banners of every pack in the Northern Territories. At the far end, on a dais of black stone, sat a throne carved from a single piece of silver-veined marble, and on that throne sat Alpha King Daemon Silvercrest. He looked different than he had in the forest, more controlled, more dangerous. He wore black from head to toe, silver thread glinting at his collar and cuffs. The crown on his brow seemed to drink in the light rather than reflect it. His face was a mask of royal composure, but his eyes, those blazing gold eyes, tracked their every step with predatory intensity. The court was assembled, dozens of wolves in fine clothes, their scents a confusing mix of curiosity, suspicion, and barely concealed hostility. At the king's right hand stood an older man with silver hair and cold blue eyes, Lord Caius, if Ilara had to guess, the royal advisor. At the king's left stood Commander Lyris and several other warriors, their hands resting casually on their weapons. "Approach," Daemon's voice carried through the vast space, brooking no argument. Ilara walked forward, Kieran pressed against her side. She stopped at the base of the dais and met the king's eyes, refusing to bow. She'd bowed to enough alphas in her life. She was done with that. Something flickered in Daemon's expression. Surprise, perhaps, or respect. "Ilara Thorne," he said formally, "you stand before the court of Shadow Crown accused of—" "Accused?" The word burst out before she could stop it. "I saved your son. I risked my life to bring him home. And now I'm accused?" Murmurs rippled through the court. Lord Caius leaned forward. "You disappeared with the Crown Prince for 3 days. You could have been working with his kidnappers. You could have been planning to ransom him yourself." "That's insane," Ilara snapped. "I found him dying in the snow. I nursed him back to health. I was bringing him to you when members of your former pack attacked you," Daemon interrupted smoothly. "Yes, we're aware. I dealt with them personally." His smile was all teeth. "They won't be troubling anyone again." Ilara's blood ran cold at the implication. She glanced at Kieran, who was watching his father with a mixture of fear and fascination. "Your Majesty?" She forced her voice to remain steady. "I understand your suspicion, but I swear on my life, on my wolf, on everything I hold sacred. I had no part in your son's disappearance. I only wanted to help him. Why?" The question was sharp, challenging. "Why risk everything for a child you didn't know?" "Because he was abandoned," Ilara wanted to say. "Because I know what it feels like to be thrown away. Because my Omega instincts wouldn't let me leave him to die. But what came out was simpler. Because it was the right thing to do." Daemon stared at her for a long moment, and she saw something shift behind his eyes. A decision being made, a path being chosen. He stood, descending from the dais with fluid grace, and the entire court held its breath. He stopped directly in front of her, so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell cedar and snow and something wild and electric that made her wolf stir uneasily. "Kieran," Daemon said softly, not taking his eyes off Ilara. "Come to me, son." Kieran hesitated, then stepped forward. Daemon knelt, bringing himself to the boy's level, and pulled him into an embrace. Over Kieran's head, his eyes never left Ilara's face. "This woman saved you," he murmured into his son's hair. "Do you trust her?" "Yes." Kieran's voice was muffled against his father's shoulder. "She kept me warm. She made me soup. She told me stories. She didn't leave me even when the bad wolves came." Daemon's jaw tightened. "And do you want her to stay?" "Yes." Kieran pulled back, his small face earnest. "Please, father, Don't make her go away. Everyone always goes away." The raw pain in those words made Ilara's eyes burn. She saw the same pain reflected in Damon's face, saw him struggling with emotions too large for this public space. Then something changed. Damon's eyes widened, his body going rigid. The scent of cedar and snow intensified, became overwhelming, intoxicating. Ilara felt her wolf surge forward with a force that stole her breath. Felt something snap into place deep in her chest. A connection, a bond, a recognition that sang through every cell of her body. No, not this, not now. "Impossible," Damon breathed. His hand came up to his chest, pressing against his heart as if it hurt. "The mating bond. He looked at her with something like horror. "You're my fated mate." The throne room erupted into chaos. Courtiers shouted questions, their voices overlapping into incomprehensible noise. Guards moved forward, hands on weapons, uncertain what threat this new development posed. Lord Caius stood frozen, his face pale with shock. Ilara stumbled backward, shaking her head. "No, that's not possible. I can't." "The bond doesn't lie." Damon's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "The moon goddess herself has spoken. Ilara Thorne is my true mate, my fated mate, sent to me in my darkest hour." "Your Majesty, this is madness." Lord Caius found his voice. "Vivian was your fated mate. The entire realm witnessed your bonding ceremony." "The moon goddess doesn't give two fated mates to one wolf." "Clearly she does." Damon's eyes blazed. Or perhaps, his expression hardened, perhaps Vivian was never my true mate at all. The silence that fell was absolute, suffocating. Ilara saw the implications spreading across the courtiers' faces like ripples in dark water. If Vivian hadn't been the king's true mate, if she'd somehow faked or forced the bond, then everything about the past 5 years was built on a lie. "That's heresy," someone whispered. "This Omega is using dark magic," another voice accused, "tricking His Majesty the same way." Enough. Damon's command silenced them all. He turned to face his court, and Ilara saw the weight of his crown settle over him like armor. "I know what I feel. My wolf knows what it senses. This bond is real, more real than anything I've felt in years. The moon goddess has given me a second chance, and I will not refuse her gift." "No." Ilara's voice was surprisingly steady. "I refuse." Every eye in the room fixed on her. Damon turned slowly, dangerously. "What did you say?" "I refuse the bond." She met his gaze, even though her wolf was howling in protest, even though every instinct screamed at her to submit. "I just escaped one forced bond. I won't walk into another. I don't know you. I don't trust you. And I won't tie my life to yours just because the moon goddess decided to play matchmaker." She heard gasps, saw shock and outrage bloom across the faces around her. No one refused an Alpha King. It simply wasn't done. Damon's expression went flat, unreadable. He moved toward her with predatory slowness, and Ilara forced herself not to retreat. When he spoke, his voice was soft, intimate, meant only for her ears. "You're terrified," he observed, "not of me, but of being trapped again, of losing yourself in someone else's will." She said nothing, but her silence was answer enough. "I understand." His eyes searched hers. "But you need to understand something too. In this realm, refusing a king's claim is treason. Disappearing with the crown prince, even to save him, can be construed as kidnapping. Lord Caius and his faction will push for your trial, and if you're tried, you'll be found guilty. So I'm supposed to choose between death and marriage to a stranger?" Bitterness filled her mouth. "Some choice. I'm offering you more than that." Damon's hand came up, not touching her, but close enough that she felt the warmth. "Accept the mate bond and become my queen. You'll have power, protection, a voice in this court. You'll be able to shape Kieran's future, to ensure he grows up safe and loved. And what do you get? Ilara demanded. Besides a convenient omega to warm your bed and give you an heir? His eyes flashed. I get a mate I can trust. Someone who proved she'd die for my son before she ever knew who he was. Someone who can't betray me because the bond won't allow it. He paused, and his next words were barely a whisper. I get someone real in a court full of vipers. Ilara saw the truth in his eyes, the exhaustion, the paranoia, the desperate loneliness of a man who couldn't trust anyone around him. She saw past the crown and the power to the father who'd almost lost his son, who'd been betrayed by the woman he'd thought was his mate. Your Majesty, Lord Caius began, leave us. Damon didn't look away from Ilara. Clear the throne room, now. But sire, now. The court filed out, moving with the reluctant haste of those who wanted to stay and watch, but didn't dare disobey. Commander Lyris was the last to leave, pausing at the door with Kieran's hand in hers. The boy, take him to his rooms, feed him, let him rest. Damon finally looked away from Ilara, and his expression softened when he saw his son. I'll come say good night later, Kieran, I promise. Kieran nodded, his eyes moving between his father and Ilara with worry. Don't hurt her, father, please. Never, Damon said, and the raw honesty in his voice made Ilara's throat tight. Then they were alone, King and Omega, standing in a throne room that felt suddenly too small, too intimate. You want the truth? Damon said abruptly. Fine, here it is. My son was poisoned with dark magic and abandoned by someone in my inner circle. Vivian, who I thought was my fated mate, orchestrated his death before dying herself under mysterious circumstances. His hands clenched into fists. I don't know who to trust. I can't tell friend from enemy. And my court is full of wolves who'd slit my throat for the crown if they thought they could get away with it. He moved closer, and Ilara saw the desperation behind the anger. The fated bond means you can't betray me. It means I can trust you with my son, with my throne, with my life. And yes, it means I'm asking you to tie yourself to me when we barely know each other. But I'm not asking you to love me, Ilara. I'm asking you to help me survive. And if I say no, she had to ask. If I refuse and accept the consequences, then I'll do everything in my power to save you from trial. I'll argue that you acted heroically, that you deserve clemency. But, his jaw tightened, Lord Caius has considerable influence, and there are factions in this court that would love to see an Omega humiliated to prove that no one refuses the crown. I can't guarantee your safety if you reject the bond. So I'm trapped either way. Yes. At least he was honest. Ilara turned away, hugging herself. Her wolf was going mad, desperate to accept the bond, to claim this powerful alpha as mate. But she remembered Marcus, remembered the way he'd looked at her before he rejected her, the way his love had turned to contempt so quickly. I won't be hurt again, she said quietly. I can't survive another rejection. I won't reject you. Damon's voice was rough. The fated bond is sacred, unbreakable. What the moon goddess has joined, no wolf can separate. Vivienne was never my true mate. I see that now. The bond with her was, he struggled for words, comfortable, pleasant, but nothing like this. Nothing that makes my wolf scream with recognition, that makes me feel like I've been incomplete my entire life until this moment. Ilara closed her eyes. She felt it too. The pull, the rightness, the sense that she'd found something she hadn't known she was missing. But that terrified her more than anything else. I need time, she said. I need to think. You have until tomorrow's moonrise. Damon's voice hardened back into the king. If you haven't accepted the bond by then, Lord Caius will call for your trial. And I won't be able to stop it without causing a civil war. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I'm sorry this isn't the romantic mate-finding you deserved. I'm sorry I can't court you properly, can't give you time to know me. But I'm not sorry the bond exists. You're the first real thing in my life in longer than I can remember. And I'll be damned if I let you die because I failed to protect you." Then he was gone, leaving Elara alone in the vast throne room with her thoughts spiralling and her wolf howling for a mate she wasn't sure she could accept. She didn't know how long she stood there before Commander Lyris returned. "Come," the warrior said gently. "I'll take you back to your rooms. You look ready to collapse." Elara let herself be led through the palace, barely seeing the corridors they passed through. When they reached her suite, she found Kieran already there, curled up asleep on the massive bed, his small face peaceful for the first time since she'd found him. "He asked for you," Lyris said. "Refused to sleep anywhere else. His Majesty had your things moved here." "He's manipulating me." Elara sank into a chair by the fire. "Using his son to—" "He's desperate." Lyris sat across from her. "I've served King Daemon for 10 years. I've seen him at his best and his worst, and I've never seen him like this, torn between duty and desire, between his crown and his heart." She leaned forward. "The bond is real, Elara. I can smell it on both of you. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. Then why did she let Vivian happen? Why did she let that woman torture Kieran?" "I don't know." Lyris's expression was troubled. "But I can tell you this. Queen Vivian changed in the last year of her life, became cruel, paranoid, obsessed with blood magic. Some of us suspected she was being controlled, but we couldn't prove it. And the king?" She stopped, choosing her words carefully. "He was grieving long before she died. Grieving the woman she'd been, the mate he thought he'd had." Elara looked at Kieran's sleeping form. He said the scars would glow. The dark magic. "They do, when certain conditions are met." Lyris stood. "Get some rest. Tomorrow will be difficult, and you'll need your strength for whatever you decide." After Lyris left, Elara walked to the bed and lay down beside Kieran, careful not to wake him. His small hand found hers instinctively, even in sleep. She stared at the ceiling, feeling the mate bond pulse in her chest like a second heartbeat. Daemon was right. She couldn't betray him now. The bond wouldn't allow it. But that same bond terrified her, reminded her of every way she'd been controlled and hurt and discarded. Tomorrow. She had until tomorrow's moonrise to decide if she would become queen to a possibly murderous king, mother to a traumatized child, and mate to a man she barely knew. Or if she would refuse it all and face whatever consequences came. Sleep didn't come easily, and when it did, she dreamed of golden eyes and silver crowns and a child's scars glowing like brands in the darkness. Chapter 4. Elara stood before the floor-length mirror in her chambers, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. The servants had dressed her in deep emerald silk that brought out the green in her eyes, had braided her dark hair with silver thread, had painted her lips the colour of wine. She looked like a queen. She felt like an imposter. "You don't have to do this," she told her reflection. But that was a lie. She had every reason to do this. Survival, protection, Kieran's safety. And one reason that terrified her more than all the others combined. She wanted to. The mate bond hummed between her and Daemon like a living thing, growing stronger with each passing hour. Even now, she could feel him somewhere in the palace, could sense his restless energy, his careful control. A knock at the door made her turn. Commander Lyris entered, dressed in formal armour, her expression carefully neutral. "It's time," she said. "The court is assembled." Elara's stomach twisted, but she lifted her chin and followed Lyris through the palace corridors. They led her not to the throne room, but to a smaller chamber, intimate and private, where Daemon waited with a handful of witnesses. He stood by the window, silhouetted against the afternoon light, and when he turned to face her, something in his expression made her breath catch. He looked at her like she was water, and he was dying of thirst. "Elara." Her name on his lips was a prayer. "You came?" "I gave you my word," She stopped a few feet away, hyper-aware of the witnesses watching them. "But I have conditions." His eyebrows rose. "Conditions?" "A trial bond. 1 month. I'll stay at the palace. I'll fulfill whatever duties you need. I'll help protect Kieran. But at the end of that month, if I want to leave..." She forced herself to meet his eyes. "You let me go. No trial, no consequences. You release me from the bond." Damon's jaw tightened. "The fated bond can't be broken. Then you find a way." Her voice was steel. "Or I walk out of here right now and take my chances with Lord Caius and his trial." The silence stretched between them, taut as a bowstring. Ilara saw him weighing his options, saw the calculation behind those golden eyes. Finally, he nodded. 1 month, he agreed. "But know this, Ilara. I'll spend every day of that month proving to you that you belong here, that we belong together. We'll see." The ceremony was brief, more contract than romance. They spoke vows before witnesses, their hands joined, the mate bond flaring bright enough that everyone in the room could feel it. When Damon kissed her to seal the trial bond, it was chaste, controlled. Nothing like the desperate claiming she'd half expected. But she felt it anyway, the connection deepening, taking root, wrapping around her heart like thorned vines. When they pulled apart, she was officially his trial mate, 1 month from becoming his queen. The court received the news with mixed reactions. Some seemed genuinely pleased, others openly hostile. Lord Caius smiled and offered his congratulations, but Ilara's Omega instincts screamed warnings she couldn't quite name. That night, unable to sleep, she found herself in the palace library. The room was massive, filled with centuries of pack histories and treaties and genealogies. She'd come looking for information about dark magic rituals, about the kind of scars Kieran bore. What she found was so much worse. Tucked into a medical text was a folded piece of parchment, yellowed with age. Ilara opened it carefully and felt her blood run cold. Wolfsbane toxicity in royal bloodlines, symptoms and treatment. Someone had annotated the text, marking specific passages about dosage and delivery methods, about how to make the poison undetectable, about how it would appear to be natural causes if administered correctly. Ilara's hand shook as she read. The notes mentioned a state dinner and wine service, and, her stomach lurched, the Queen and the heir. Vivian hadn't died of mysterious circumstances. She'd been murdered, poisoned at a state dinner with wolfsbane-laced wine, and someone had tried to kill Kieran the same way. Ilara thought of the boy's silver scars, of the dark magic that had been worked into his skin. What if the scars weren't meant to kill him directly? What if they were meant to make him vulnerable to poison, to ensure the wolfsbane would work? She had to tell Damon. Had to. "Finding anything interesting?" Ilara spun around, the parchment clutched to her chest. Lord Caius stood in the doorway, his smile pleasant, his eyes cold as winter. "Just couldn't sleep," she said, forcing her voice to remain steady. "Thought I'd read." "In the restricted medical section?" Caius moved into the room with predatory grace. How curious. Most new trial mates spend their first night in more pleasurable pursuits. Ilara's Omega instincts roared a warning. She could smell it now, the deception rolling off him in waves, bitter and wrong. How had she missed it before? "I was researching dark magic," she said carefully, "trying to understand what was done to Kieran." "Ah, yes, the poor prince." Caius's expression was sympathetic, but his scent betrayed him. He was lying. "Such a tragedy. Though I suppose it all worked out in the end. The boy's home, and you've secured yourself a crown. Quite the fortunate turn of events for a rejected Omega." The contempt in his voice was barely concealed. Ilara's fingers tightened on the parchment. "I should go," she said. "His Majesty will be wondering. His Majesty is occupied with military matters. He won't notice if you're delayed. Caius moved closer, cutting off her path to the door. Tell me, my dear, what exactly did you find in that document you're clutching? Ilara's heart hammered. Nothing, just medical notes. Liar. The word was soft. Deadly. You found something. I can see it in your eyes. The question is, what are you going to do about it? She backed away, her mind racing. She could scream, but would anyone hear her in this isolated corner of the palace? She could fight, but Caius was a full-grown alpha, and she was an omega who'd barely recovered from her rejection. She could run. Ilara lunged for the door, but Caius was faster. His hand caught her arm, yanking her back with brutal force. The parchment fell from her fingers, fluttering to the floor between them. Caius looked at it, and his expression went cold. So, you know. I know you murdered the Queen, Ilara spat. I know you tried to kill Kieran, and I know. His fist connected with her temple, and the world exploded into stars and darkness. She hit the floor hard, tasting blood. Such a shame, Caius murmured, standing over her. You could have been a useful pawn, but you're too clever for your own good, Omega, just like Vivian was. Through blurred vision, Ilara saw him pull something from his pocket, a small vial filled with dark liquid. Wolfsbane, he explained conversationally, mixed with nightshade and crushed monkshood, a special blend that works particularly well on Omegas. Vivian lasted 3 days after I dosed her wine. Let's see how long you survive. Ilara tried to crawl away, but her body wouldn't respond. Caius knelt beside her, one hand fisting in her hair, forcing her head back. The vial moved toward her lips. Then power exploded through the mate bond. Rage and terror and murderous intent so strong it made her gasp. Somewhere in the palace, Damon had felt her pain. Caius felt it too. His eyes widened. Impossible. The bond shouldn't be that strong yet. The library door shattered inward, blown off its hinges by pure alpha force. Damon stood in the wreckage, his eyes blazing gold, his wolf so close to the surface that fur rippled along his arms. Get away from my mate. Each word was a death sentence. Caius dropped the vial and ran, shifting mid-leap, his wolf form crashing through the window in a shower of glass. Damon started after him, but Ilara's whimper stopped him cold. He was at her side in an instant, gathering her into his arms. Ilara, stay with me. What did he give you? Wolfsbane, she managed. The poison was already spreading through her system, liquid fire in her veins. Damon, he killed Vivian. He tried to kill Kieran. He's been planning... Shh, save your strength. But she could hear the panic in his voice, could feel his hands shaking as he lifted her. Lyris, get the healers. Now. The world blurred as Damon carried her through the palace. She was vaguely aware of shouting, of running footsteps, of being laid on soft sheets. Healers swarmed around her, their hands glowing with healing magic. But she could feel the poison winning. It's not working, someone said. The poison is too strong, Your Majesty. It's specifically designed to kill Omegas. We don't have the antidote. Then find one. Damon's roar shook the walls. There isn't time. She has minutes, not hours. Ilara's vision was fading at the edges. Through the fog of pain, she felt Damon take her hand, felt him pull her consciousness toward his through the bond. There's one way, a healer said quietly. Complete the mating bond. Your alpha blood could purge the poison if you mark her fully, if you complete the claiming. But, Your Majesty, it's risky. It could kill you both if it goes wrong. Do it, Ilara whispered. Kieran needs you. If I die anyway. You're not dying. Damon's voice was absolute. I didn't wait centuries for my true mate just to lose her to a traitor's poison. He bent over her, his teeth grazing the mark on her neck where Marcus had rejected her. The old wound burned, but Damon's touch soothed it. I, Damon Silvercrest, Alpha King of Shadow Crown, claim you as my mate, he said formally. my queen, my equal, my fated one. From this moment until my last breath, you are mine and I am yours." His teeth sank into her neck and the world went white. Power flooded through the mate bond. Pure, overwhelming, undeniable. Ilara felt Daemon's alpha strength pour into her, felt it hunt down the poison in her veins and destroy it cell by cell. Felt his wolf merge with hers, two halves of a whole finally joining. The pain vanished. The darkness receded. She could breathe again. When she opened her eyes, Daemon was still bent over her, his teeth red with her blood, his expression fierce and tender and utterly possessive. "Mine," he growled. "Yours," she whispered back, and knew it was true. The healers were staring at her in shock. "Her wolf," one breathed. She's... Ilara felt it too. Her wolf, which had been fractured since Marcus's rejection, was whole again. Stronger than whole. Power thrummed through her body, making her skin glow with an inner light. She sat up, and gasps filled the room. She felt different, taller somehow, more solid, more real. The Omega weakness that had defined her entire life was gone, burned away by the mating bond. The prophecy, an old healer whispered, an Omega queen strong enough to stand beside an Alpha king. I never thought I'd live to see it. Daemon helped her stand, his arm around her waist, and she realized she was exactly at eye level with him now. She'd grown. Or perhaps she'd finally become what she was always meant to be. "Chaos," she said urgently. "He's behind everything. He made you think Vivian was unfaithful. She wasn't. He spread the rumors about Kieran being illegitimate. He hired rogues to dump Kieran in the Forbidden Woods. It was all part of a plan to make you unstable and airless so he could stage a coup." Daemon's expression went cold with fury. "Where is he?" "He ran, but Daemon..." She grabbed his arm. "Marcus is involved. My ex-mate, he's been Caius's spy." As if summoned by his name, the door burst open and Marcus strode in, flanked by guards. But these weren't palace guards. These wore the colours of Caius's personal retinue. "Your Majesty," Marcus said with a mocking bow, "Lord Caius sends his regrets, but he's been called away on urgent business. He asked me to deliver a message." "Did he?" Daemon's voice was deadly calm. "And what message would that be?" "That you're a fool." Marcus's smile was vicious. "You let a rejected Omega into your court, into your bed, and you actually believed the moon goddess sent her to you? She's nothing. A pawn in a much larger game." Ilara felt rage surge through her, hot and pure. "You were paid to reject me." Marcus's smile widened. "Caius found out through a dark seer that a rejected Omega would save the prince and expose his plot. So he paid me very well to make sure you were broken, discarded, easy to eliminate before you ever reached Shadow Crown. He pulled out a dagger, its blade black with poison. I was supposed to kill you before you left Packlands, but you ran before I got the chance. Sloppy of me. I won't make that mistake again." He lunged. Daemon moved to intercept, but Ilara was faster. Her new power sang through her veins, and she met Marcus's attack head-on. They collided in a tangle of claws and teeth, her wolf surging forward with strength she'd never possessed before. She was no longer the weak Omega he'd rejected. She was a queen. Marcus's eyes widened with shock as she drove him back, as her claws found his throat. "Impossible. Nothing's impossible," Ilara snarled, her voice carrying the weight of an alpha's command. "You're just a coward who sold his mate for gold." She could have killed him. Part of her wanted to, but Daemon's hand on her shoulder stopped her. "Let me," he said softly. Ilara stepped back, and Daemon's hand closed around Marcus's throat, lifting him off the ground with effortless strength. "You conspired against the crown," Daemon said, his voice carrying through the room. "You betrayed your mate Bond. You served a traitor." His claws extended, piercing skin. "The penalty for treason is death." "Wait," Marcus choked out. "Caius has allies, neighbouring pacts. They're planning to divide Shadow Crown territory between them. Kill me and you'll start a war. Then let there be war. Daemon's claws sank deeper. I've been too soft, too trusting, too willing to play politics. No more. Let every pack in the north know. Anyone who threatens my mate, my son, my crown, will face the same fate. Marcus's body went limp. Daemon dropped him and turned to the guards who'd come with him. Anyone else want to declare for Caius? Now's your chance. The guards dropped to their knees, baring their throats in submission. Find him, Daemon ordered. Find Caius and bring him to me alive. I want him to face justice publicly. I want every wolf in Shadowcrown to see what happens to traitors. As the guards scrambled to obey, Elara swayed. The adrenaline was fading, leaving her exhausted. Daemon caught her, lifting her into his arms. Easy, he murmured. You just survived poisoning and completed a mating bond. You're allowed to be tired. Kieran, she said. We need to check on Kieran. He's safe. Lyris has him in the secure wing. But Daemon was already moving, carrying her through the palace toward Kieran's rooms. They found him awake, sitting up in bed with Lyris standing guard. When Kieran saw them, his face lit up. Elara, father! He scrambled out of bed and ran to them. I felt something, like lightning in my chest. What happened? We completed the mate bond, Daemon said gently, setting Elara down so she could embrace the boy. Elara is my queen now, your mother if you'll have her. Kieran looked up at Elara with those mismatched eyes. Really? You'll stay forever? Forever, Elara promised, and felt the truth of it settle into her bones. Kieran threw his arms around her, and as he did, something strange happened. The silver scars on his arms began to glow, brighter and brighter, until everyone in the room had to shield their eyes. When the light faded, the scars were gone. In their place was a mark, a symbol that looked like two wolves circling each other, surrounded by ancient runes. Impossible, Lyris breathed. Daemon knelt beside his son, his hand hovering over the mark. It's a prophecy mark. I've only seen them in the oldest texts. What does it say? Elara asked. A voice from the doorway answered. Born of betrayal, saved by love, the child of two fates will unite what was broken. They turned to see an ancient woman in white robes, her eyes milky with blindness, her presence radiating power, the royal seer. Lady Mora, Daemon said, standing. What does this mean? The seer moved into the room, her unseeing eyes fixed on Kieran. The boy is not just your son, Your Majesty. He carries the blood of two ancient lines, yours, and one thought extinct for 1,000 years. What line? Elara demanded. The Moon Blessed, the original pack born directly from the moon goddess herself. Mora's voice trembled. They were hunted to extinction by those who feared their power. But one bloodline survived, hidden, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Vivian, Daemon whispered. She was moon-blessed. She was the last pure bloodline, and when she bore your son, she created something unprecedented, a child with Alpha King blood and moon-blessed blood combined. Mora's expression was grim. Caius knew. That's why he wanted the boy dead, because Kieran's survival means the old bloodlines are returning. And there are enemies far more dangerous than traitors in your court who will come for him. Elara pulled Kieran closer, her new strength settling around him like armour. What enemies? The Shadow Wraiths, the dark pack that destroyed the Moon-Blessed line a millennium ago. They thought they'd won. They thought the prophecy was dead. Mora's blind eyes seemed to see straight through them all. But the prophecy is alive in this child. And when the Shadow Wraiths learn of his existence, they will come. They will bring war, and they will not stop until every last drop of moon-blessed blood is spilled. Silence fell over the room, heavy with implications. Elara looked at Daemon and saw the same determination she felt burning in her own chest. Let them come, Daemon said quietly. They'll find Shadowcrown ready, and they'll find a queen who won't let anyone hurt her son. Ilara added, feeling her wolf rise in agreement. Mora smiled, sad and knowing. The moon goddess moves in mysterious ways. She took everything from you both, your first mates, your security, your peace. But in return, she gave you this, a true mate bond, a child who will change the world, and a love strong enough to face what's coming. She turned to leave, then paused. The rejected Omega and the grieving king. Fate's design was always perfect. You were broken, so you could be rebuilt stronger, together. As the seer disappeared into the shadows, Ilara looked at her new family. The powerful king who'd chosen her, the special child who needed them both, the bond that tied them all together. Her rejection by Marcus hadn't been a curse. It had been the first step toward her true destiny, and though war was coming, though enemies gathered in the shadows, Ilara had never felt more ready. She was a queen now, and she would protect her family with everything she had, even if it meant facing the darkness itself. Epilogue. 6 months later, the winter sun cast long shadows across the palace gardens, turning the fresh snow into fields of diamonds. Ilara stood at the window of the royal nursery, watching Kieran play below with a group of children from the village. His laughter rang out, clear and joyous, as he tackled another boy in a spray of white powder. "He's happy." Damon's voice came from behind her, his arms sliding around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. I'd almost forgotten what his laugh sounded like. Ilara leaned into her mate's warmth, her hand covering his where it rested on her stomach, on the small swell that had only recently begun to show. He's healing. They all are. After Caius's execution and the purge of traitors from the court, Shadow Crown had transformed. The darkness that had hung over the palace had lifted, replaced by something lighter, warmer. Hope, Ilara had come to realize. The court had remembered what it felt like to have hope. "The emissaries from the northern pacts arrived this morning," Damon murmured against her hair. "They want to renew their treaties. They're calling you the Peace Queen." Ilara smiled. In the months since she'd been crowned, she'd worked tirelessly to rebuild alliances that Caius had tried to destroy. Her Omega abilities, enhanced by the mate bond, allowed her to sense deception and truth with perfect clarity. No one could lie to the Queen. It made negotiations remarkably efficient. "And what do they call you?" she teased. "The besotted king?" His voice was warm with humour. "Apparently I smile too much now. It's unseemly. Terrible for your fearsome reputation. Absolutely ruinous." He turned her in his arms, his golden eyes soft as they traced her face. "I love you. Have I mentioned that today?" "Only 3 times. Ilara rose on her toes to kiss him, but I'll never tire of hearing it. 6 months ago, she would have run from these words, from this intimacy, from the vulnerability of being so completely loved. But Damon had been patient, had courted her properly even after the mating bond was complete, had proven every day that he chose her, not because fate demanded it, but because his heart did. A knock at the door interrupted them. Commander Lyris entered, trying and failing to hide a smile. "Apologies, Your Majesties, but the young prince is requesting your presence in the garden. He says it's urgent." Damon groaned. The last time something was urgent, he'd found a family of rabbits and wanted to keep them all as pets. "And you let him keep 2, Ilara reminded him with a grin. "You're a terrible influence on my authority." "Someone has to be." They made their way to the garden, hand in hand, to find Kieran waiting with barely contained excitement. Behind him stood Lady Mora, the royal seer, her blind eyes twinkling with secrets. "Father, Ilara!" Kieran bounced on his toes. "Lady Mora says the baby is going to be a girl." Ilara's hand flew to her stomach. They'd been keeping the pregnancy quiet, telling only a few trusted people. Kieran: "That was supposed to be—" "A secret, I know. But this is important. He rushed forward, his small hands reaching for her belly with touching reverence. Lady Mora says she'll have silver hair like the moon blessed, and she says— He looked up at them with eyes shining with wonder. She says my sister will be able to talk to the moon goddess herself, that our family will bring back the old magic. Damon knelt beside his son, his expression tender. And how do you feel about having a sister? I think— Kieran's face scrunched up in thought. I think she'll be lucky, because she'll have you as a father and Ilara as a mother and me to protect her from anything bad. His mismatched eyes, gold and silver, the mark of his dual heritage, found Ilara's. No one will ever hurt her the way Mother hurt me. I won't let them. Ilara's eyes burned with tears. She dropped to her knees beside Damon and pulled Kieran into a fierce embrace. No, my brave boy, no one will ever hurt her. We'll all protect her, just like we protect each other. That's what families do, Kieran said matter-of-factly, his small arms tight around her neck. They love each other and keep each other safe and never leave. Over his head, Ilara met Damon's gaze and saw her own emotions reflected there. Joy and gratitude and an almost painful love for this child who'd brought them together. Lady Mora approached, her ancient hand coming to rest on Kieran's head. The prophecy is unfolding as it should. Born of betrayal, she looked at Kieran. Saved by love. Her hand moved to Ilara's belly. The child of two fates will unite what was broken. She smiled. And for a moment she looked centuries younger. Your daughter will be the bridge between the old world and the new. Through her, the mooned blessed will rise again. And through all of you, the shadow wraiths will finally be defeated. The shadow wraiths, Damon said quietly. We've had no word of them in months. Because they're gathering their strength, building their forces. Mora's expression turned serious. They will come, Your Majesty, but not yet. The moon goddess has given you this time, this peace, to prepare, to build your strength, to love each other. Her blind eyes moved between them. Use it well. After she'd gone, the three of them, soon to be four, stood together in the garden as the sun began to set, painting the snow in shades of gold and rose. Are you scared? Ilara asked Damon softly. About the war that's coming? Terrified, he admitted. But I'm also grateful. For you, for Kieran, for this second chance at happiness. He pulled her closer, his hand protective over their unborn daughter. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. Together, Ilara agreed. Together, Kieran echoed, pressing close to both of them. That night, after Kieran had been tucked into bed and kissed goodnight, Ilara and Damon stood on their private balcony, watching the full moon rise over the mountains. Do you ever regret it? Damon asked, his arms around her from behind. Accepting the bond? Becoming queen? Taking on all of this? Ilara thought of Marcus, of the rejection that had nearly broken her. Thought of stumbling through the snow, wounded and alone, certain her life was over. Thought of finding a small boy in the woods and making the choice to save him instead of herself. Every moment of pain, every tear shed, every dark night of the soul, all of it had led her here. To this man, this child, this life she never could have imagined. Not for a single second, she said, turning in his arms to face him. My rejection wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. The beginning of ours, Damon corrected, kissing her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Above them, the moon shone bright and full, and Ilara could have sworn she felt the moon goddess smiling down on them, approving of what she'd wrought through pain and betrayal and unexpected love. Inside Ilara's womb, their daughter stirred, already strong, already blessed. And in his room down the hall, Kieran slept peacefully for the first time in his young life. His prophecy mark glowing faintly silver in the moonlight. War would come. Darkness would rise. The shadow wraiths would test them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. But tonight, there was only love, only family, only the quiet certainty that whatever battles lay ahead, they would face them together. The rejected Omega had become a queen. The grieving king had found joy again, and the child born of betrayal had become the symbol of hope for an entire realm. The moon goddess's design had been perfect all along, and in the palace of Shadow Crown, under the watchful eye of the moon, a family forged in fire and sealed in love, prepared to write a new chapter in history. Together, always together. The end.